Hey everyone, Sylvia here. I'm creating a basic beginner-friendly JavaScript tutorial series on the 6 different data types used in JavaScript. I'm starting it off with Booleans, and Booleans are basically used to check if a condition is true or false. I'm going to cover some examples and drills. So if you want to follow along, just open up your browser JavaScript console and I'll walk you through them. On the left-hand side here, I have a list of the examples we're going to go through. You can find a copy of that in my GitHub below if that helps you out. Let's focus more on the browser side of things. So in order to open up the console, you can right-click and select Inspect, or using the keyboard shortcut on your Mac, just press Command Option I and click on the console tab. So the first example is basically using comparison operators in order to output a Boolean value. So if you're not familiar with comparison operators like in algebra, for example, I think you'll find them rather straightforward. So console log 5 is greater than 1. This is going to output as true because 5 is greater than 1. Same goes with console log 5 is less than 1. So this will output as false because 5 is not less than 1. So this is a very basic example of how Boolean types are outputted in expressions like this. Other comparison operators are greater than and equal to, less than and equal to, and not equal to. And these are important to know going forward. I'll provide some examples here. Console log A, which is a string, is not equal to A. So this is rather easy to predict. This is true because this capital A is definitely not equal to this lowercase a. Same goes with this example. Capital A is equal to capital A, which is true because they're both identical. Now, just a fun fact here, Booleans are actually named after a famous mathematician called named George Boole in the 1800s because he was a very significant contributor to something called Boolean algebra and logic. And as you can probably start to sense now, these operators are pretty much stemmed from algebra itself. Now, it does get a bit trickier, and I'm going to show you some examples here. For example, log, console log, and z is less than a. Now, what do you think is going to output here? It's false. And the reason being is because the way with JavaScript and how it evaluates strings, it's based on something called a Unicode standard. So this comparison, it basically compares these two strings and from left to right. And based on where those numeric codes are in the Unicode standard, it's going to output whether it's false or true. An easier way to think of this is any uppercase letters like ABC will always be less than any lowercase letters like lowercase ABC. So another example would be capital Z is less than lowercase c. And that's true. Same goes with let's see here. So this is true because, like I said, any lowercase letters are going to be greater than any uppercase letters. And that's just how it is and how JavaScript interprets these types of string values. Let's move on to logical operators. So with these types of operators, we have the logical AND operator, the OR operator, or the logical NOT operator with an exclamation point. Some examples include console log, true, and true. So this outputs as true because it evaluates this expression as being true, as well as this on the right. Console log, false. So this is false because this left side is false. And there's another tricky part on the way JavaScript does these logical operators, and it's called short circuit evaluation, in which basically, let me show you this one example. Where basically, when it comes to the OR operator, it evaluates the left side first for any true value, and if it's true, it outputs it as true. Whereas if it finds that this isn't true, it moves on to the data type here and outputs it on the right. So let's say console log was false. So as you can see, since this isn't true, it moves on to the right side and outputs A instead. The same goes with the AND operator, except it's the other way around. I'll show you an example here. So on this example with the AND operator, instead of it evaluating the left-hand side as whether or not if it's true, it's actually going to evaluate if it's false first. Since this example is obviously false, it's going to output false. However, if we were to switch it up and put true, you're going to see that it's actually going to output A instead. And again, it just moves on to the right-hand side and grabs this value and then outputs it. This is called short circuit evaluation. You can look into it further if you'd like. So here's a fun just trick question section of this tutorial. And I have one example here. And this is called a not a number, NaN, and it outputs as a number. And the reason being is because not a number is actually, like, technically it is a number type, but it doesn't represent a numerical number like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. So in this question, keeping that in mind, what do you think this is going to output? As true or false? So it actually outputs as false, and that the reason being is actually because this not a number on the left hand side represents a different value type compared to the not a number on the right hand side. Again, just because this is the equal sign, which is representing equal to, that doesn't mean it's true. And this is particularly the case with not a number value types. Another trick question I thought was fun is console log B and capital B. Now, what do you think this is going to output? It outputs the capital B, and this is not exactly a Boolean example, but it is a useful example to explain, why this AND operator influenced the output of capital B. And it's because, as I said before, the AND operator, using the short circuit evaluation, it actually evaluates the left-hand side for false values. And since this string is not false, it's actually true, and it's a definite value type, it moves on to the right-hand side for B and outputs that instead. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you found it to be a comprehensive overview of Boolean values and how they're used alongside comparison and logical operators. Again, these examples, you can refer them to the link below in my GitHub. And again, if you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.